Moments of silence become hypocrisy when they are a substitute for meaningful action.
While not serving any particular theological purpose, moments of silence can at least keep an issue before the general public.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
Thank you, Mark, and I too would like to welcome you to this edition of the American Religious Town Hall meeting. We're so glad that you've joined us today, whether you're watching us on television or viewing us via the internet. We're glad you are here. I think you're going to enjoy today's topic. But before we get started, I'd like for you to meet our panelists. We'll start with the gentleman to my right.
My name is Canon John Peterson. I'm an Episcopal priest, diocese in the Diocese of Washington.
I'm Jordan Offsire. I'm a rabbi living in Palm Springs, California, retired, yet very active in many different important opportunities for teaching and studying and speaking in my community.
Hi, I'm Tom Plumley. I am the senior minister at First Christian Church in Fort Worth, Texas. We're a part of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ.
My name is Andrea Luxton. I am the president of Andrews University in Michigan that is affiliated with the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
My name is Othel H. Lakey. I'm a bishop in retirement of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church.
Hi, I'm Carl Troval, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at Concordia University in Austin, Texas.
Well, I'd like to welcome each one of you here to the panel today. Welcome back to those of you who are regulars. And then we want to welcome Dr. Luxton, especially back. You've been away for a few months. And congratulations on beginning your new appointment at Andrews University. How has that been going for you, by the way?
Great so far. Thank you very
much.
Yes,
and we will be praying for you. And we're glad that you're here today to join in this discussion.
Thank you.
So if you're ready, let's get right to it. With regard to our topic today, moments of silence are common occurrences in today's society. As a period of contemplation, prayer, reflection, or meditation, a moment of silence is a universal gesture of respect. Such moments provide opportunity for a given community, even a nation, to give proper recognition and honor to a fallen hero, noteworthy personality, or some tragic event. It is an occasion for mourning, remembrance, and a measure of healing in the wake of the tragedy at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, for example, that happened last June. However, Speaker Paul Ryan led the House of Representatives in a moment of silence in honor of the 49 people who had been massacred. The chamber erupted into shouting as Democrats expressed frustration over the lack of votes for gun control after repeated mass shootings. Democrats chanted, "Where's the bill? Show some respect." Other Democrats shouted in protest. Some lawmakers, including Representative Jim Hines, the congressman whose district includes the Sandy Hook area, where 20 elementary school children were killed, walked out of the House chamber before the moment of silence began. Earlier, Hines declared he would not participate in any more moments of silence as a form of protest over the lack of legislature response to mass shootings. Such killings, he says, involve bigotry, homophobia, mental health problems, or terrorism that we address only with silence, close quote. The same day, led by civil rights longtime leader John Lewis, the Democrats held a sit-in because no legislation to curb gun violence was presented for a vote, confining ourselves only to the issue of moments of silence. We ask our panel of religious leaders to address these questions today. Here's the first one. In all seriousness and respect, what is the essential purpose or intent of a moment of silence? And the second question is, were members of Congress acting responsibly in claiming that a moment of silence is not a substitute for attempt by Congress to address the problem of gun violence? And then finally, are political leaders, whatever their religious convictions might be, true to their faith or even their oath of office when a moment of silence is the only response to national and horrific tragedy? That is our subject for today. We're going to go back to those who began our program. So we return to Jordan Ofsire. Rabbi Ofsire, we're glad to have you here today.
Thank you.
And you opened our program today. Would you continue to expand your thoughts on that for us, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to acknowledge that the agenda, the context of gun violence was presented quite clearly and sets the perspective for this horrific situation in our country. So let me be very brief with the particular perspective that I represent. Recently, the House of Representatives, led by the Republican majority, refused to pass any kind of gun control legislation in the context of the horrific acts of violence that we were witness to in our country. We live in a time of a crisis of gun violence. Each year, more than 30,000 Americans were killed by guns, and all too often in mass shootings that involve not handguns that may be used for protection, but really weapons of war that were intended particularly for the battlefield and not for civilians, particularly not in our country. And so I want to sum up my position with these few words. I would like to remind you that it was President John Kennedy who taught us that the hottest place in hell is reserved for those who at time of crisis sit back and do nothing.
All right, thank you very much for your perspective. That starts our program off now. Reverend Plumley, we're glad to have you back on the program today as well. You had a few positive things to say about moments of silence. Can you tell us a little more about, well, yeah, maybe. Okay.
Yeah, maybe. You know, what I'd like to say about moments of silence is, you know, particularly in the legislative context in which this particular protest was launched, by the way, which I think was a brilliant political move, timed just right, in an effort to prepare for the elections and so forth. You know, most legislators at least purport to be connected to and faithful to some sort of faith community. They at least purport to have some relationship to God. They're pretty diverse in at least being predominantly Christian, a lot of them Jewish. In Congress there is one Muslim, and yet they don't seem to want to do anything but speak to God. I would appreciate it if they maybe in the 10,000th time they call for a moment of silence, that they might actually listen to the God that they are supposedly addressing, and might find that God is somewhat peeved, shall we say, to avoid the stronger language of the Old Testament prophets at their shows of religiosity. You know, this gun violence thing it's a crazy issue in our country because it is one that is there's a peculiarly unique disconnect between the American people and their supposed representatives. Polls regularly show that 75% or 85%, even 90% of the people are in favor of some kind of legislation about guns, and yet they're not even able to come up with a single vote because they are so much in the pocket of the gun industry.
All right, thank you very much. Let's hear from some of the other panelists. Dr. Luxton, since you've been away for a while, we'll let you go next then. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you. I suppose my concern in this conversation is that we don't kind of throw out the bath with the bathwater, so to speak. And I think we need to separate the two issues for a moment. The issue of lack of action, which I think is a huge problem, and the importance of moments of silence, which I think is very important too. I was thinking of an analogy. As Christians, most of us will say grace before a meal. It's a good thing to do. But it can also become something that's a tick box. Okay, I've said my grace, now I can eat. And the meaning goes out of what is actually a very important thing to do. And to me, moments of silence are actually very critical and very important to us. I think it's an equalizer. I think it's a moment of shared humanity. Wherever we are, wherever we come from, we for a moment recognize the fragility of humanity, the evils that we do. I think that is what it is about and should be about. Now, has it become a formality, a tick box for some people? Maybe yes, and that's very unfortunate. But to me, I would say we need those moments of silence because they're very critical to who we can be as a community. But we should also act.
Thank you very much. Now, across the table, Bishop Lakey, welcome to the program again.
Thank you.
Your position on the matter.
Thank you
please.
very much. I become a bit concerned when those who are elected to pass legislation for the good of our nation assume the role of pastors or preachers or spiritual counselors. To make it, put it rather brutally, we don't elect legislators, congressmen to pray. We don't elect them to hold moments of silence. We elect them to enact those rules and regulations for the good of the nation. And when tragedy strikes, for our congressmen to assume a holy posture, we're going to have a moment of silence as if they have done something when the entire nation is waiting for them to act in light of that violence. To me, it's very disturbing. I don't need them to have a moment of silence. I can do that myself.
Would you think the chaplain would be a better person to stand up in a
No.
legislative body? Not at all. Just not at all?
Legislators ought to act, pass legislation, pass gun restriction laws.
All right, so the
Don't
House...
worry about, around this table, we can pray as well as the chaplain. Around this table, we can be in touch with God as good as anybody.
But we can't
But we
pass
cannot pass
legislation.
legislation.
All right, thank you.
And what
Thank
do
you.
feel about the subject?
Yes, thank you.
Can I get an amen?
Across the table is Dr. Trovall. Dr. Trovall,
Well, with all due
your
respect,
position, guys.
I do agree with you. At the same time, all right, let's just say that there wasn't a call for a moment of silence. You know that every Democrat would have argued, look, they're so callous, those Republicans, they didn't even have a moment of silence for the people who died. I mean, you're in a political world, everything is politicized, even a moment of silence. To me, it's better to go through the ritual of having a moment of silence, because the political issues are so broad and wide. And while I mean, my heart is with you, but at the same time, you can't not have a moment of silence for a national tragedy, because it would be political suicide. You have to, and it's also presuming, I believe that all the people who actually took that moment of silence did it because they genuinely said a prayer or had thoughts or respect for the people who died because it was a tragedy. And to presume that they were, that it wasn't from their heart, I think that's just a wrong presumption.
You say that's up to the individual as to how they want
Yeah.
to approach the subject.
Yeah, just to be a contrarian, to throw things out here.
Well, thank you. Let's come up to the head of the table then. And John Peterson, we're glad you're here too, Canon, and your position on the matter, if you would, please.
Thank you. Andrea, I think that I would want to make a comment about the ticking of the box, because I suspect that frequently moment of silence is to tick a box for whatever political or sociological reasons there might be. Frequently we tick a box. And I think that the congressman from Wisconsin, Mark Pocan, really made an important distinction here, that instead of having another moment of silence, he said what is needed is a moment of action. And of course, that night, which was, for those of us who saw this on television, was just an incredible experience with people shouting as loud as they could, no leadership, where's the bill, where's the bill? And I suspect that what was being asked for that night was indeed not a tick of the box of another moment of silence, but indeed a tick of the box that for once some action would take place.
All right, thank you. Let's come back over to Rabbi, and then we'll come back across the table in a moment here. Rabbi,
So I would like to suggest that a clarifying thought might be to contextualize these moments. There are moments when silence is profoundly important. The reasons have been articulated so very, very well. But we need to place those moments of silence in appropriate contexts. This was not an appropriate moment for silence when action was desperately called for.
Carl might argue a little differently, but we can. Well, do you want to respond? I saw it on his face. I'm sorry, but if you want to, whatever.
Well, only that I agree there needs to be action. I'm frustrated that there's no action. I agree, but
context
I don't think it's
also.
an either or. I think it's a both and.
Yes,
I think
agree.
that moment of silence is really critical, and I think it needs to go beyond it.
Thank you. Then across
Yeah.
the table, Reverend Plumley.
I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to reflect on the nature of prayer. Prayer is not limited to that which we do on hands and knees. Prayer is what we do in our hands, with our hands,
With our shoe
and
leather.
with our shoe leather, with our feet, where we march, what we do,
Context.
what actions we take. That is prayer, far more profoundly than what we do when we bow our heads and close our eyes and start something with "Dear God" and end it with "Amen." Prayer is not limited to those kinds of
If I
occasions.
may ask, in a broader context, another question to consider here: is a moment of silence always a moment of prayer? We're living in a very diverse community in this society. So to not everyone, a moment of silence is going to be, I'm going to pray. They might just be showing respect, correct? Without prayer? Huh?
Sure.
Yes.
Absolutely, which is even weaker.
Yes, and I think our atheistic friends would probably say that's not weakness; it's a matter of just to bring balance to the
It's
discussion.
diversity,
if
and
we
it's
could, please.
appropriate. It's it's doing even less.
All right, Rabbi Offsire, come back to you.
That's
then,
why
then
it's
Dr.
so
Luxton.
very important to contextualize it.
Yes.
To connect
Right.
the moment with the context. And that's really my point. And when we do that, it becomes hypocritical when one is in the position as a legislator to take action to do nothing.
All right, thank you. Dr. Luxon, back to you again, please.
Yeah, I just still cannot see why we have to say one or the other, which seems to be where the conversation is going part of the time. Seems to me that both are good, both are appropriate for different reasons. And I agree with you, prayer is action. I absolutely agree with that. You know, I mean, my background is literature, and when we look at drama, when we look at literature, the silence is such a huge, powerful emotion, point of time, of connection. I mean, that's what you talk about all the time. And I cannot see why we can't have that, even as part of leading to action.
Perhaps-
a moment to think,
perhaps-
what action should we take? Let's be silent while we think
Let me
about
pose
that.
this question. Do you believe that there is an appropriate time to express condolences to the families of those who've lost loved ones in that public setting?
Of course.
So perhaps the issue is calling it that particular period of time is what is the problem for some of you around the table.
And the problem,
contextual.
the problem even for Representative Hines from Connecticut was that there was no both and. It's just
Yes.
always the one,
Yes.
always the one, always
right.
the
No,
one.
Bishop Lakey?
I'm disagreeing. The issue before us on this topic is that at that moment, the Congress of the United States, instead of, in place of
Exactly.
action, called for silence. That's the issue.
Exactly my
I'm
point.
agreeing with the distinguished president that there are appropriate moments of silence. This was not one of them.
Here, here.
And then, Carl, you wanted to say, and then we have to go to a break.
I think that any tragedy in the United States should have a moment of silence, because I think the people who died and who suffered are owed that by us.
All right, thank you very much. I'm sorry, we're out of time for this segment. It went by very quickly, but I'd like for you to hear this message. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Thank you, Pastor Lutz. We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you, Pastor Lutz, and today's closing statements.
Welcome back. We're glad that you've joined us today. As you can see, we've had a very interesting discussion around this table, but it's now time for the summations. We're going to go to our panelists and ask them to make their final comment with regard to today's topic. Let's go to John Peterson to begin.
Thank you. I cannot imagine that Jesus, if we're looking as Christians, and Jordan will certainly respond as a Jew, that Jesus would ever want us to simply take a stand of inaction. Now, I would agree that prayer or moments of silence do not have to be inaction, but certainly it has been interpreted, and certainly in the context of the House of Representatives, that was a situation of inaction instead of taking action.
All right, thank you very much. Now, Reverend Plumley.
I'm thinking of many places within both New and Old Testament, but particularly the prophet Isaiah, who began in chapter 1 with this notion of God, speaking for God, saying, I'm sick of your sacrifices. I'm sick of the blood of the bulls and the sheep and all of that, when it's not followed by anything. Indeed, when it is part of an ignoring of the poor, an ignoring of the suffering. That can be leveled at Congress.
All right, thank you very much. Bishop Lakey.
Thank you very much. I remember reading somewhere in the Hebrew Bible, if you please, where it says, be still and know that I am God. If moments of silence do not in some way put us in touch with what God requires and what God calls us to do, I think it is a hypocrisy. And I do believe that our Congress engaged in a moment of hypocrisy rather than a moment of honor.
All right, thank you for your participation across the table. Dr. Trovall.
I don't think it was hypocritical. It's consistent with the position of the Republican Party, or at least of those congressmen, that's not a gun control issue. It's been on their agenda for a long time, that there's nothing to be done. But at least I think there needs to be both a moment of silence and action that go together. To have one without the other is hypocritical.
All right, thank you very much. Now, Dr. Luxton, your summation.
Action and moments of silence, or moments of silence and action. I don't mind which way around you put it. I think they have to go hand in hand. I wouldn't want to give either of them up.
All right, and thank you. And now, Rabbi Offsire. your summation.
Thank you. As the issue was presented to us by the moderator, there was a particular context that was at the heart of that introduction. And at the heart of that situation was the floor of the United States House of Representatives, where the delegates, where the members of the House had a choice. The choice was between acting and not acting. And for those who had the opportunity to act and to make a significant difference in the life of our fellow countrymen by passing sensible gun legislation, to take a moment of silence creates a hypocrisy in that moment and in those moments, because they had the power to act differently.
All right, thank you very much, Rabbi. And thank you to each one of you for all that you've done today for today's program. I'm sure this has been very enjoyable to watch. I can't wait to see the tape back on this one, by the way. But we are glad that you've joined us today. That's what the Town Hall is about. We take subjects like this. We might not always agree, but that, of course, is the essence and the meaning and the purpose of this program, to bring people of different thoughts, points of view around the table and discuss issues that are important not only to us, but I'm sure to everyone who is watching today. So we're glad that you've tuned in. By the way, we know there are some viewers who have been watching this program consistently for over 60 years. I just received a letter from someone who confessed to that, and that is an amazing thing when you think about this. Clear back in the 1950s, 52, 53, when this program was just getting started, there were viewers who turned in and never went back. And for you, we're very grateful for your continued support and viewership of this program. If you are new to this program, we especially are grateful for your presence as you are watching this, and hope that you'll come back and that you'll tell your friends about the program as well. So we're really grateful for what you send in, your cards, your letters, your compliments, even sometimes your criticism is very welcome here. This is one of those programs that is always in motion. We're always trying to figure out what is the next topic, and fortunately, there are lots of them. And some of you have turned in some really great suggestions for them. So thank you. And until next time, the Charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy, and the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory, but in reality. So now, friends, until next week at the same time and over this very same channel, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. And may the God of all of us bless all of you.